I'm so excited about this guest today on Real Money. I'm joined by the amazing Hilary DeCesare. I'm grateful to call Hilary a friend, and with all the success that she's had in her life, I'm going to read her bio here in a minute. What impresses me the most about Hilary is her ability to look inward and get real and honest about what success really means for her. She's going to share a really personal journey of being on TV and also being recognized as a millionaire, but also realizing that she had some work to do to figure out what success really meant for her. Let me read you her bio. She's an award-winning business expert, a 3-time international esteemed author, and pioneer of female powerhouses in Silicon Valley. As a sought-after speaker, founder of the Relaunch Company, and one of the first women to contribute to almost $250 million in sales for the tech giant Oracle. We talk about that. Hilary brings a fresh energy to industry leaders, CEOs, and entrepreneurs. Hilary is deeply passionate about neuropsychology. And if you've been following me on the show, you know that I am also really excited about integrating money and neuropsychology. She holds a master coaching certification, a degree in psychology, and she draws from her expertise and her background, where she's developed an innovative framework called the 3HQ and the Intune Power Tool. And she talks about that on the show today, how you can use these things to focus on the 3 H's, the head, the heart, and the highest self. And I think that we could all do more of that when we're talking about money. Join Hilary and me as we have this amazing conversation, and I cannot wait for you to learn from my friend. All the things that you've done. I don't know if you've actually have you taken a company public?
I haven't taken my own personal company public. I've worked with people who have.
Yeah. So you have a lot of knowledge and wisdom that I would like to lean into so that our listeners can learn from your journey.
And then the other thing I would love, because I think I was just on a big podcast around training for CFOs and financial advisors. And I actually took the gentleman through the TuneIn process. Mm-hmm. And it went so well. And it's kind of how you elevate yourself when you're kind of knocked down and bringing yourself back up to that energetic level. A lot of neuroscience in it. So it does take a little bit of time, but I think it's proving to be like one of the things people are like, oh my God, that was so good.
How long does it take?
It will take probably less than 10 minutes to go through the whole thing and put in, I call it the daily dose, the dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins. So,
do you want to do it on the show? Is that why you brought it up?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah. And then all I would ask you is, what is your biggest business challenge right now? I'll ask you that.
Okay.
And then what is a song that when you hear it, it just lights you up?
Okay.
Okay. And the name of it, we don't have to play it, but we do have to have you hear it and do it.
Okay, cool. Cree, did you have something?
Yeah. So if it looks like it's buffering, keep talking.
Yeah, it's okay.
The recording will catch up.
Okay. Got it. Yeah, I've been down this road a couple times. Oh, okay. Yeah, Hilary, if it looks like it's buffering, you're fine. We're fine. Okay.
Perfect. Well, right now I'm actually on an actual landline, so it should be okay.
Yeah. Just if you see me buffering though, we're good. We'll keep going. Okay. You ready? Let's do it.
Sounds good.
Hilary DeCesare. I am DeCesare. Hilary DeCesare. Like Caesar. Caesar salad.
Yep. Caesar salad, DeCesare. Of Caesar.
Okay, we'll start over. Hilary DeCesare. I am so glad that you're on the show today. Truly, so grateful. Thanks for being here.
Lisa, we've been talking about this. You've been on my show. I am so excited. Anytime I get to spend more time with you, it's a great day.
Thank you. Me too. I am so curious. I have so many questions for you. We're going to dive in. Are you ready?
Love it. I love
Okay.
it.
I'll do a formal introduction before the show. So we'll do all of that. Yeah. Okay. I want to start with Hilary back in the day, like back in the day. And we can start
back in the day.
Yeah.
How far are we
We're
talking,
talking
Lisa?
about the 1900s, Hilary.
Yes, everyone. I'm the oldest woman alive.
Okay. How did you go from an account manager at Xerox to raising millions and millions and millions of dollars at Oracle?
Okay. You really are going back.
I am.
Because usually we start at my Oracle days where I was at corporate there for 10 years, but you want to go even further back.
I do, because there are women today who are in corporate America who are really trying to figure this shit out.
Yeah.
And
I get it.
That, I think, is an important part of your journey. Like, how does someone go from Xerox to Oracle? And at that time, Oracle was like the bee's knees. They still are, but they were still like relatively new, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's really interesting when you said Xerox. And for those that are still trying to figure out what Xerox is, it's the printer company. And it was a really big deal then.
Yeah.
But I'll never forget, I came out to the Silicon Valley and they were right next door to Marriott's Great America. Okay. And they had soundproof windows. And so when you talk about women trying to figure it out, going from corporate into their next relaunch is what I call it. Hence the name my company is the Relaunch Co. There is an image I have, and it was in the actual boardroom at Xerox, where imagine you are sitting there and the roller coaster is the upside down part of it is right directly in our view as we're sitting there. And I always made sure to sit with my eyesight at the roller coaster, because you'd see these people put their arms in the air screaming, but we couldn't hear the scream. And so I often whenever I hear that word Xerox, I think, oh my God, there I am in that conference room. And I literally was that woman that was screaming, but not on the outside, on the inside. So I want everyone to know that there is a way that you can get through it. You can relaunch yourself into whatever your next big adventure is. And the best part is that I had a lot of corporate guilt during the time when I was, especially at Oracle for those 10 years, I was in financials and manufacturing. And I was guilty when I was at work because I thought I should be home with my children.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I was home with my kids, I was like, oh my God, I should be doing work. And so there's this like ping pong match that you go through in your own head. And what really has to take place is, there's right now happening, there's this tune out process. We're tuning out of what we really ultimately want. We just got to get through the day. We got to get through the month. We got to get through fill in the blanks. And if you keep going down that path, what ends up happening is that there is this final blow where I know we're going to get into it, but it's called 3HQ. It's your head, your heart, your highest self. Your highest self, that best version of you, is ultimately going to come out and want you to take the path that you know you're supposed to be taking, but you're too freaking scared to do it. And I really think one of my favorite things to do is to work with women that have had this great success. They know they're supposed to be doing something different, and they finally realize, maybe it's through, a show like yours, that it's like, it's time.
It's time.
It's time to make it happen now. There's a great new show on YouTube. It's called The Third Act, the THEE, Third Act. And it's with Tim Allen's wife is doing it. And there are these little 3 to 5 minute segments. And it's the funniest thing because it is like, it's the next chapter, wherever you are, right? Yeah. That's where we are right now.
That's where we are. For you though, you go from, I'm just so curious. and that's so valuable. And like being in the relaunch space, it looks like I'm on LinkedIn right now looking at your bio. You've had a number of relaunches, not necessarily totally. And this for anybody listening in corporate America, in a career, no one ever goes straight up. It's a series of steps, sometimes sideways, sometimes backwards to get where we are today. And I'm curious for you to go from Oracle to a startup. I think Everloop was a startup, right?
It sure was. But there's a good twist in there too.
Okay.
There always is, right? And I was again at Oracle for 10 years, and our president left, Ray Lane, and he went to one of the top venture capital firms, Kleiner Perkins, and he called me up. I just had my third baby, and he said, "Hey, can you come over and do a scrub session for all of our portfolio companies, the executive management?" And he said, "I really want everyone to hear the processes that you've been putting in place at Oracle." And I said, "You know what? I absolutely will. I would love to. How about in a couple months?" And he said, "Well, here's the problem. I've got everyone coming in a week. Is there any chance you could come in? It won't be very long, and you don't even have to prepare, Hilary." And I thought, okay, I know this man too well. So I did prepare a little bit. At that point, I had a nanny helping with my twins. And so I said, "You're going to come with me. We're driving an hour. We're going to bring all three kids. It's only going to be, a little bit of time." And so it was this really interesting situation that happened. It was literally over a 3-day period that is when I decided I really wanted to get into peak performance, into neuro performance and coaching people, because I loved it.
Mm-hmm.
It lit me up. I loved hearing everybody's different scenarios, and it was men, it was women, and helping them through kind of the process behind it. And so many of them were so focused at the time in like the IQ, the intelligence, the steps, the processes. And I remember this one gal said, "Hilary, just give me like the 10 things that I should go do." And then the other person was like, "But, I really want to be emotionally connected to it. And so how do I do that?" And I'm like, it was this kind of this very strange environment of like, everybody's trying to figure out what is the secret to success. And I had already, been in management. I'd managed quite a large group at Oracle and had seen the different styles. And I thought, this is really interesting. If we keep going down this path, that it's inclusive of one or the other, your IQ and the steps, or your EQ and your emotional, if you're emotionally savvy, and like if you're savvy, I meant to say savvy, then how do you ultimately reach happiness? Because I had already seen so many people hit it big, have that great success, and their marriages were failing. Their kids wouldn't talk to them. They were, doing everything to tune out, drinking, pills, overeating. And I'm like, there's got to be an answer here. Like, how do we do this? And that was the time period that all of a sudden it just was like the light bulb went off, and I thought, you know what, this is what I need to do. And so I didn't launch my first high tech startup, a security firm that kept kids safe. I actually launched a consulting business and worked with 50 different clients. And I mean, that gives you a lot of great perspective, because I had already worked at Oracle in all the different industries. So it was at that point that after about 5 years, I had some pretty gnarly relaunches. I was going through a divorce. My kids had some health issues. I got melanoma. I mean, it was just like the walls were, or the tires were coming off the car. And I was just like, okay, something is not working here.
What?
And
what wasn't working? What was it?
I would say that, I was ignoring a lot of the signs of burnout, of, putting myself last. I often refer to something called the G zone, which is where you really feel like you're in flow, your great zone, your gratitude zone, your growth zone. And I wasn't growing. I was grinding.
How young were you? You had 3 kids. How young were you?
I think I was probably in my early 30s, maybe mid 30s. And I was just like, I was shutting down. I was ignoring every sign in my body. And I was just going harder and harder and harder. And it was at that point, my kids were just turning into the tween state. So it's between when they're little and they're not quite there yet for teenagers. And a situation happened and I was called to advise, actually ended up at the White House. And it was around, a woman that was really cyberbullying and socially bullying this little girl. And the little girl ended up taking her life.
Mm.
And I thought, there are no parameters around kids online. And
Not at that time, there weren't for sure.
No. And it became this quest. I launched a company around it. It was my first one that I really, outside of, it was called White Space Inc., this consulting company, which I laugh now because I've been doing this. I've been coaching for what I say now over 2 decades. But at that time it was called consulting.
Right.
Like I was consulting. Now it's coaching. And now, everyone claims they're doing it. And I'm like, maybe I'm the grandmother, of coaching. So it ended up that it was really this turning point that I started to focus not on 50 or 100 different, groups and people taking them through. I thought I just need to start to make an impact in a much bigger way. And it really was, I often say your business can't grow if you're not growing. And so I finally realized I'm like, now I'm in 3HQ. I've got the head, I've got the steps, I've got the heart, my passion, and I've got this highest self, the best version of me, where I'm operating in that G zone. And it was just the greatest time until it wasn't.
Yeah.
Until it wasn't. And I often say that you learn the most through the trials, the tribulations, and the complete crashing and burning.
Yeah, I had Sue Herrera on from CNBC on the show last year.
Yeah.
And Sue told a story of being the only female journalist on Wall Street when she was coming up. And what that was like for her, and to be in such a masculine environment and navigate being a mom and an executive and on Wall Street nonetheless. Because my show is money focused, I'm curious to know, as a woman in the 90s and early 2000s in tech, there weren't many women around, were there?
No, there weren't. And so I often say I was a man in a woman's body.
Yeah.
I had to completely change who I was being. And I think that that's part of the breakdown of what happened to me and my health, is that I wasn't, there's so much talk these days about being authentic, authentically you. And there's so much truth to it. But I look at being authentic as just being real. Like being the real you. And those nesting dolls that you open, and then there's another one, and then there's another one. You get finally inside, and there's the little teeny one, right?
Yeah.
I think we all build up these really hard walls around ourselves because of what society says we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And it's like when you start to turn the outer case of the first nesting doll and it makes that terrible screech, that sound where it's like, oh. You got to get past it and get real with the understanding that it's almost like there was a crazy time in my life that I decided randomly, I was just intrigued by matchmaking. Okay. Just hear me out. There's a reason I'm going down this path. So I have always done very weird hobbies and done strange things. And so I decided to go to New York. I got certified as an international matchmaking, from the International Matchmaking Institute. And I found it so interesting as I was learning how to do this, that I kept thinking, what women need to do is forget about trying to find that partner. And again, I had gone through a divorce. So there was also this like intrigue that like, how, what is the deal out there with these matchmakers? And what I decided to do is implement, hey, what if you had to date yourself? How would that look?
Mhm.
What would you do for you? And I got to tell you, everybody I took through these exercises, nobody would go out on a second date with themselves. It was a first and a one and done type of dating situation, but it gave me a lot of data around women and what we do and how we build up our walls and how then all of a sudden we wake up and we're like, you know what? Maybe I'm not where I thought I'd be at this point. I'm not in the relationship, or the relationship isn't satisfying me right now, or the work I'm doing isn't the impact I thought it was, that I
Mhm.
thought I'd be doing. And it's really fascinating. As soon as I start to say, okay, well, let's take it back a bit, it always has to do with they've lost their sense of self.
Yeah.
And that is so common, especially with women. And I love Brene Brown said that midlife is anywhere from 35 until you're dead.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of women out there listening that, hey, we're all in this together. We are all in this together. And, it's that next chapter. And every day, and I like to post on my Instagram, these inspiring stories that I see of women. There was one that was lifting like this crazy amount of weights. She's like 85 plus. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't even lift like,
Yeah.
the bags of groceries sometimes because they make them so heavy. I'm like, I need to start upper body weight training. But I want people to know that as you start to think like, oh, is it too late? That is a limiting
Yep.
belief, and it is never too late.
Yep.
It is never too late until you close your eyes and it's finally over.
I'm a huge fan of that concept. And I would say that for my audience and for the conversations I have is that a lot of people believe that it's too late financially. Maybe they don't believe that it's too late to get married again, or they don't believe it's too late to go back and get a PhD. But the underneath layer of it all is a belief that financially they only have this finite amount of time to earn money, or that if it's gone, it'll never come back. And I think that's a big belief. If it's gone, it'll never come back. For you, what have been some of those highs and lows for you, hearing that you went through divorce, hearing that you went from this high level executive to more of a startup kind of world? You have a lot of achievements and also a ton of lessons. What are some of those lessons that you've learned?
So when I was newly divorced, I remember going to my financial advisor, and my financial advisor said, if you keep spending the way you spend right now, whether it's on your business or whether it's just what my lifestyle was, he said, you're going to end up being broke in 5 years. I'm like, what? Like, what are you talking about? And he said, so you got two options. You can either reassess and redirect, or you can go out and get remarried and make sure the guy has lots of money. And I'm like, ah, this is not even, that's not an option right now. So I'm like, all right, let's talk about what I need to do. And here's the thing that I want to share with people. I was a psychology major. I went pre-med in school. And then I got very into neuroscience. I've been studying it for long, long, long time. And what I realized that day when he was telling me this is that I do have two ways that I can approach this. And I got more into our thoughts dictate what actually comes out. I looked at how I was negatively looking at my business and sunk costs and what I was putting into it. And I shifted it. And it was interesting because I realized I had a belief underground surfacing.
Yep.
I call them bugs, and I have this process called the belief blaster. And I realized that I had grown up in a family where my dad was an orthopedic surgeon, grandfather was an orthopedic surgeon, and it was all about the now and working super hard and then playing super hard, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you make the money and then you spend the money, right? That was my belief. That's what I grew up with. And now I'm single. I have gone through the divorce. I'm still trying to maintain my lifestyle as I have always had it. And I'm being told, no, you can't. I'm like, what do you mean I can't? And I realized I had to figure out first and foremost where that bug came from. And it was Helen. I named the bug Helen because she's Helen the Hellion. Like she just kept spending money. She had to kind of pull the reins back. And then I started to take myself through a process that I had learned through psychology and tried to really understand how I got to this place. And as I did it, I also joined a program to become it was a master program in neuroscience coaching and master coaching. And I did that. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, I've got the process. I want to take people through it. So I started to practice on myself first. And I'm like, and it does take in your brain, it takes 62 to 67 days to rewire your brain. We can push through certain levels of elevated energy and be able to get through certain situations, but to have long-term change, this nonsense business out there that people are trying to say you can really push through and create these new empowering beliefs, and your old beliefs are just gone. Doesn't
That's
happen.
bullshit.
They're still running side by side. And so I took myself through this, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, I started to see massive changes. I started to manifest things that I would throw out there, and I'd be like, all right, totally opposite of my limiting beliefs. And things started to happen. And then the more I went into that, remember I told you about the G zone, that growth zone, that gratitude, that highest self. And I started to be like, I want to be in this area more than that other area of I'm going to run out of money. I'm never going to be. And so I realized that everyone had said, oh, it takes a long time to build yourself back up to that place that you were before the divorce. And I'm like, who told me that? Like, who says that? Where did that belief come from? That it has to take a long period of time. We've all had things called bluebirds, right? Where you're like, where'd that client come from? Or where'd that deal come from? Or wow, how fortuitous that I just met this person, right? We've all had those bluebird moments.
You were talking about the G zone and the lessons about living at your highest self. And I think that that's important for our audience, because I know I'm also trained in NLP. So I have my trainer certification in NLP. And there's a lot of bullshit out in the world about how you can just manifest and change your mindset. And it takes work. It takes methodology. It takes modalities. It takes commitment. And to your point, you said 62 days.
At a minimum, 62 to 67 days to create a new empowering belief.
Yeah.
And you can, under a scan, see it. It's called synaptic pruning. It literally breaks apart. It's the coolest thing when it happens.
Yeah.
And so that's, it's funny. People do say, oh God, it's too long. You're asking me to do it, for 5 minutes, 3 times a day. Really? And I'll say, okay, how old are you? Okay, let's say they say 45. And I'll say, okay, your limiting belief probably came up when you were 5. So you have been living with this limiting belief for 40 years. You're telling me that you can't give me 15 minutes, 3 times a day for 62 to 67 days to get rid of it.
Mm-hmm.
so that you can speed up success.
Yep.
Success like speed, we limit ourselves.
Yep.
We put the barriers around it. We say, oh no, it needs to take, I can't become a millionaire until I'm X age. Or, it's going to take me this long and this is how much money I want to have before I retire.
Mm-hmm.
All limiting.
All
Stop
fixed.
limiting. Stop limiting yourself.
Yeah. It's all fixed mindset. This is how it's
It
going to
is
be.
all.
This is how it's always been. This is how it's going to be moving forward. There's nothing I can do about it. There's nothing I can
No,
do
so
about it.
you were talking about, people that are potentially feeling stuck or I don't know what to do at this point. This is such a massive time of relaunches. And the relaunches are those transitions. Transitions, I call them transitions to transformations. And transformations don't have to be always good. They don't. And so
They're not. Yeah.
a lot of times people make a decision to go do something and they haven't really considered the why behind it. They've looked at it from maybe, it's going to be more money, so I better go do it. But there's so much more. I've had clients where I've taken them through, and a great example, a gal just got fired and the board fired her. And she came to me and said, oh my God, I've been told that there's no jobs available. There's no place that I can go. I'm like I'm in a field right now that's being, just murdered out there. And I said, okay, how many jobs do you need? She looked at me like, what are you saying? I said, you need one that is right for you.
Mm-hmm.
And we went to work and we crafted exactly what she was looking for from a 3HQ perspective, from a head and the thoughts around it, from the heart and what's really going to light her up, from that energetic G zone, that highest self. And we came up with literally a master plan, all the way down to the words that she wanted to hear from the people she worked with, from the other, people at the company. 6 weeks later, she got her dream job, more money. She was able to, not like crazy enough, she was able to actually, she texted me and she's like, oh my God, what I had put down, the words I wanted to hear just came out of the CEO's mouth.
Yep.
And that is, your brain is wired to do this.
Yep.
We have that, reticular activation system. As you said, you've been studying all of this too. And when we look at it and we say, don't hit the pole, and we hit the pole, right? Well, the reverse can happen too.
Yep.
When we put out there, I want, to be healthy, wealthy, and wise.
Yep.
I want to be healthy, wealthy, wise. That when you start to formulate what you're actually going for, that's what that RAS, the reticular activation system, is going to be looking for.
Yep.
And what you focus on, you get back.
Yep.
So there's so many ways that you can literally, look at your financial portfolio right now, or the lack of, right? Your credit card debt and the things that are happening. And by changing the way you're actually looking at it, like, okay, yeah, that's where it is right now, but where I see it, what I know is true, what I know about myself and my history of what I can do, my performance, all of a sudden you're not thinking about how old I am, what am I lacking? You're looking at it from a growth. What do I need to do to be successful? What kind of job do I want to go for now that will allow me to have that connection with the 3HQ?
Yeah.
And as you do that, it is the most profound results. I mean, it's when you tap into your energy on demand and your natural, like what has been, given to you steps in and people get what they are going for.
So let's talk about the fear of success, because we hear it. I'm in Cree's studio today. Cree and I are really, really good friends. And we were just having this conversation before the podcast about what women want But then also at the same time, you'll hear them say, I really want to do that. So we did a women's retreat for years. Cree did the women's retreat. I brought women to the retreat. I really want to go. I really want to be there. I just can't. Oh, that sounds amazing. Or I would love to start my own company. I just can't. I'm afraid. I'm scared. What do you say to that?
It goes right back. It goes right back to the bugs. Goes right back to the beliefs underground surfacing, and that every single person that isn't doing something and they start to say, I really want to, but you know what? This year's not going to work, but I'm going to be there next year.
Yep.
It is a limiting belief. It is a bug that is holding them back. And I'll give you a great example. A woman came to me it was actually right before COVID. It's just a great story because super successful. She has this amazing podcast, and she had been through a lot of different coaches. She was like, almost I'd say she's like a coach junkie.
Yeah.
She was like, let me try this coach. Let me try that coach. And she said something to the effect of, I don't know why I cannot get past the six figure. Like I can get into the mids, the highs, and then I can't do it. So we went through the bug process, and she identified all of a sudden that she grew up in this family that if they ever saw anyone that had like a really great car, her parents would be like, ugh, they're the rich ones.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, they're those people. And so she had this bug around, don't buy things, don't do things because the perception is they're bad people.
Yep.
They're not us. And what do we all want? We want that connection, right? We want the bonding. And so she was just like, I kept doing it. And then she said something, and it was like, it just cracked open. It was like that nesting doll. It just went, whoop. She said, I told my mom that I was going to buy a new car. And the mom said, well, what kind of car? And she hesitated because she said what the car she wanted was one thing, but then she threw out a different car. She was like, what the hell? That isn't even the car I want. Like, why did I say that? And we started working on the fact that she didn't believe that if she bought the car, she would still be part of the family. She would be ostracized. She would be kicked out of that inner circle. As soon as we got past that, as soon as we did the belief blaster and I took her through and we did the 62 to 67 days, guess what happened?
She made $1 million. Yep.
She busted right through that 7-figure, and then she just kept going.
Yeah.
But a lot of times we can't see our own blind spots, right?
We've
often heard that.
Yeah,
we can't.
We can't. And what I love so much about the coaching world is that you can't bust through your own shit. You can't see your blind spots, and you really can't bust through your own shit on your own. You can read
really
books, you can journal, all of that, but it's either a major life event that catapults you to the next, whatever the next is, which is the other thing I want to ask you about is your most recent relaunch, what happened, why it happened, all those things. But yeah, like life is going to require you to take a long, hard look at yourself, or you can be intentional about it and say, okay, what are the things that are in my way right now? Help me see my blind spots, and a trained coach will help pull out of you what you need to see and know and hear so that you can get to that next level. But yeah, we can't see our own blind spots.
No, it's very hard to do. We are not wired to do that.
Mm-mm.
And so that's why I have had a coach for the last 5 years. And I actually have 2 coaches right now for different reasons and purposes of where I want to have that G zone growth. And there's things that I bring and I say, this just happened. And I'm like racking my brain. What did I do? How do I change this? Yet if somebody comes to me I don't give answers. I have them. It's like this beautiful, do you know Nancy Drew? You know,
Yeah.
they're like mysteries, right? I love to think that like I turn people into Nancy Drew. Like forget Sherlock Holmes. We don't need that person. We need Nancy. And so once you start doing that, then every day gets a little more interesting
Mm-hmm.
because you're just looking, you're observing, you have an awareness, you acknowledge, you can then know that you're on this self-realization path. It's just so it's so cool when, you know, and I'm sure you have the same thing when people contact you and they're like, "Oh my God,
Yeah.
I can't believe you said that this could happen, but I didn't think it could happen for me."
Right. I just had a client. She's been for 2 years now wanting to get out of she's an esthetician. She's been wanting to get out of her spa space. And so a couple days ago, she texted me. She's like, I have to talk to you. I found this most amazing space. And she was trying to talk herself out of it. And she wasn't trusting herself. And I said, wait a minute. We've been working on you attracting this space for a long time now. Don't sabotage it. It's here. It can be that easy. When you see it, you can know it. But you got to like wrestle with your beliefs and being willing to break through your bullshit.
Right. And something is keeping her from that specific location is now coming right there. It's right there.
Yep.
It's what she has been wanting.
Yes.
But now it's not the right time.
Mm-hmm.
It's got, you know, whether it's not the right time, it's too expensive. You know, I've got these other priorities now. I mean, there's all those. Those are your judges. Those are your bugs. Those are the things that will, as you said, self-sabotage, right?
Yep.
It's that when I think about the 3HQ and the head, heart, highest self, and the heart is that point where there were so many times that, you know, on the outside, everything looked just great. On the inside, I hated my life. I hated myself. And then I'd go to these like self-help types of events, and, you know, everyone's jumping around and they'd be like screaming, love your life, love your business, love, love, love. And I'd be like, that's bullshit. I don't love anything right now, especially myself. And so I started to think about this very differently. Instead of going from that self-sabotage, hate, and trying to cross the chasm, trying to, you know, do the evil Knievel, let me go over the Grand Canyon. I'm like, can I just go to like first? Can I do like? And when I gave myself the ability to not feel like I was failing at love again, I was like, yeah, I like that. I like that I just did that. And maybe it has something to do with that whole matchmaking thing that I did. But I'm like, you know, sometimes for women, we try to go for that, like, I need to have that chemistry, that love, that like, you know, lightning bolt moment with the guy. And I'll say, do you? Or can you just start with like? And it is amazing how if we can start with like,
Maybe
a lot of times love will come.
What was going on for you? Was it during the divorce or after the divorce that you didn't like yourself? And I'll say that intentionally I'm asking that question for my listener right now, who on the outside looking in is successful. And I can imagine for you that you have been around and emulated success, just knowing what I know about you for the short amount of time that I've known you. But then on the inside, there was a very different conversation going on. What was that?
I remember I was just on the show, Secret Millionaire.
Mm-hmm.
It was a very popular show, and they had done an entire episode around me. And I remember watching the show and just thinking, what a bunch of bullshit. Like, oh my God. Like they pieced it together in this like incredible life and all this. And what I got out of it was the best part was when I could help these people, and you end up giving your own money. There's this like fallacy that the show gives the money. And I'll never forget my ex-husband when I told him I was going to be on it. And I said I was going to spend, over, I think it was like, I think I ended up giving away about $120,000 of my own money. He literally was like, "You are crazy. That is the stupidest thing you could ever do." And I remember when I gave the money and I was giving it, I was like, it is the best feeling I've ever had in my life. And so I watched this episode where I'm like, that woman is not who I am, but that moment when I'm giving is all me. And how do I get more of that into my life? Not that I could afford to just keep giving away money, but how do I bring that emotion into my life? How do I impact people like I did with the financial means to have them go do things and get their businesses out into the real world? And it was hugely profound in changing the trajectory of my life. And that was, again, when we can be honest with ourselves to say, you know what, I don't like myself. But I guarantee you there's that little spark that just needs to be ignited. And once you get that spark ignited and you're not dulled out, you're not tuned out, and you can tune in to what you really want. And that's hard for people. It was really hard for me. Like, what the hell do I really want? What is going to make me happy?
How did they portray you on the show? I haven't seen the show. So how was it that they portrayed on the show that was incongruent with who you want it to be?
You know what? It was more of, like the perfect lifestyle, the perfect house, the perfect kids, just the perfect like exterior of everything. And it was, I remember there was this one scene where it's like, oh, and she's leaving her lifestyle behind. And, there's another part of the show where you have to say, there's something I want to tell you. I'm actually a millionaire. And I thought, oh, like just throw up in my mouth. I'm like, oh, it didn't resonate with me. And I think we filmed a couple scenes a few times and they're like, you really have to say it, Hilary. Like you have to say it. And I'm like, so there's one, if you ever watch it, I'll be like, yeah. And I remember that was like the best I could do. And then they're like, you know what? We're just going to roll it. Like, keep going. I'm like,
because you don't want people to know you as that.
You know what? It just seemed like it wasn't what was important.
Yep.
At that point, it wasn't. In fact, it wasn't important at all who I was and what I had. It was far more important what I was doing and the person that I was helping. Like that, I forget about me, like make it about them. And I think, you know what? I mean, that when I talk about the whole being real, I look at that a lot because it woke me up to, wow, like stop trying to continue with that persona, with that identity. I mean, I'll never forget when I went to this event at the school and this woman came up to me and said, oh, and I didn't even know this woman. I mean, she came up and she's like, oh, I just heard. And I cannot believe you guys were the, Ken and Barbie. You guys were the picture of like love. It was like, first off, how do you know? Like, because of the way we looked? Well, obviously on the inside, that wasn't the case. And I tried to be as nice as I could without being like, who are you? Why are you talking to me? And you don't even know me. And it was just, but that was this perception. And the more people I told at work, even people are like, what? And that's the thing. You don't know anything about anyone.
Nope.
at all.
Yep.
And so relaunches are happening left and right with people.
They are.
Massive, massive relaunches. I'm going to give you a great example. This morning, I was at the oncologist with a dear friend, and she had asked me to drive her. And we get into this appointment, and I'm thinking I'm going to sit out on the couch. And she says, why don't you just come in? It's my last one. I'm talking to the doctor really fast. And then I was taking her to the airport. Well, we get in there, and all of a sudden she gets bad news.
Mm.
And I'm sitting there, and, again, the day before you would have thought everything is fine. She's done. She's moving on. It's all good. And then it's not. And this is, you can't look at it. And too many people are like, but just yesterday or just last week, things happen, relaunches happen. And so you constantly have to reassess. You have to be checking in. 3HQ is not just about yourself. It's about others. It's about, yesterday you were bump, firing away. And now what's going on today? Like asking, being genuinely interested, having that heart-centered business. What does that even freaking mean? Right?
How do you do that?
Because it's being thrown around left and right these days. And I'm just like, oh. And so you don't know about people. You don't know about what's going on in their life. And many of us don't want to share.
Right.
I definitely did not want to share.
Right.
And it blew up in my face because I was a listener, but not a talker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you. I know that because even my perception of you, you're so full of life, and you're moving and shaking, and you're going to be speaking at a huge event that we're having coming up in Vegas this weekend. All that you do, all the work that you do, all the books that you've written, there's all this success, right? And there's human Hilary and mama Hilary and daughter Hilary. And you're right. It is so easy. And in my podcast, just a couple podcasts ago, it was like, people are so obsessed with success and money and fame and fortune. And at the end of the day, doesn't it just matter who we are and that we make a difference? Can't that be just as much success as anything else?
It's very interesting. But that is social media. That is, there's things that you can be very proud of in your life, right? And then there's what interests people. And these days, I feel like I've got some really amazing opportunities where I can impact lives.
Mm-hmm.
And some people will just be like, oh, you're a co-host on that TV show. Like, oh, who's the biggest person you've interviewed so far? And I'm like, well, let me tell you about the biggest person I interviewed that's making such a huge impact. And so I'm more about, especially now, I look at it this way. I really have come full circle. And there was a point where somebody said, Hilary, you're like the relaunch queen. And at first I was like, you're right. I am. I've been through, and when we went through and we counted, it was like 33 massive relaunches. And I'm like, yeah, I really feel like I can really talk to somebody about there. And all of a sudden, another relaunch happened. I'm like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
And I realized, just like we talked about, by me labeling myself that, what am I doing? I'm calling on more relaunches so that I can continue to say, look at me. Wow, here we go again. Finally, I was just like, stop. I have plenty of relaunches, plenty of life's journey. I want to now enjoy. I want to now experience. And I did go through a massive gauntlet of, my grandma died 105. And we thought, oh, all the women in my life have all lived into their hundreds. And then my mom got diagnosed with colon cancer, stage 4. It was a misdiagnosis. So for everyone out there, go get your colonoscopy. And she died 14 months later. And then my brother became an alcoholic, and it was just like, and he's my only brother. And it just started this like deep heart, like really massive. And I kind of paused, and there's something in my book, I call it the pause principle, to really reflect on this and to say, like, what is going on? What lesson what lesson is this teaching me? Because this fucking sucks. Like, this is the worst of the worst. I thought I was going to lose my brother, and I'm like, and then my dad died. I forgot to mention that. And he died 2 days before my book came out. So my big launch, events, all kind of, I was just like, I'm cooked, I'm tapped, no more. And it was during those times where I just said, you know what? I do have the ability to look at this, to understand the lessons, but also to say, I want to enjoy life. I want to have more happy times than the sad times. I want to experience. I mean, I held my mom's hand as she took her last breath. I want to have so much more of the joy of that joie de vivre, right? That, like, yes, let's do that. And so I have really changed my entire lifestyle now, and it's reflecting through me when people meet me. And as you said, I'm gaining great opportunities, but I'm being more selective.
Yeah.
I'm more focused now on what kind of lifestyle of success do I really want,
I think
and getting other people there.
That's so profound. And I think, and I hope that women will listen to this and watch this show and take that away. That we can enjoy our lives. We can be profoundly grateful and connected and supportive of one another. And we can have a hell of a good time and run successful companies. It's all possible with intention and focus.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Great way you said that.
I think that's a really great way to end the show. And with that, what I'd like to do is have you open up anything or share anything with the audience that you think would be valuable from sharing your story, from all of the lessons. I love that even with Relaunch, you were attracting that into your life and not even realizing it unconsciously. What's on your heart to share with everyone today?
It's interesting what you're saying about this coming weekend. I'm going to be presenting and talking. And I thought, what do I really want to talk about? And I decided on a topic. And the topic is pop the champagne. And very quickly, when I was at Oracle, I was given a bottle of champagne by a client. And instead of popping it, instead of drinking it, I put it on the top shelf in my office. And I said, I'm going to drink that when I close the next deal, when I get the next promotion, when. And finally, when I was leaving Oracle, I grabbed it off that top shelf, and it had all this dust on it. And I thought, how sad. I never popped the champagne. And we know, neuroscience based, that the more you celebrate, not just the big wins, but the small wins, the more your brain wants to give you more of that. And so I think in ending this has been such a great hour together. I would say, everybody, figuratively, literally, pop the champagne.
Pop it.
Pop it, girl.
I love that so much. Hilary, thank you for being here. I am so excited for this year together. You've got a lot of amazing things coming up. How can people plug into your world?
I think the best way right now is to go to it's just TuneInPowerTool.com, TuneInPowerTool.com. It is a great way, very quickly, not like my 62 to 67 day process, but a very quick way to learn to tune in 1 minute a day, and it will elevate your energy. It's on demand, so you can do it yourself, and you're leveraging all of the happy hormones in your brain and just starting to tap into them creating more of what you're going for. So tuneinpowertool.com, and then you can always go to therelaunchco.com.
Hey, thanks so much for being here today. I hope this conversation was super inspiring for you. Make sure you subscribe to my channel. And if you're looking to take the first step in my world, I know that you need to know your money personality. Join me on the adventure of knowing what your money personality is and how you can live your healthiest life financially. Do that today.